let's talk about how to use the new foldable container, as well as how we can use them to create our own foldable tooltips. Alright, so I'll start by saying if you've seen the other two tooltip videos that we've done, with doing custom ones and custom scenes of that, you might initially think that that's what we're just going to have to do something like that. However, those kind of tooltips are not interactable. So if you take a look, if you try to mouse over them, it's not going to work because it's just going to disappear as soon as your mouse moves. So if we want to use a foldable containers as a tooltip, we're going to have to get a little more creative than just using the basic custom tooltip function that exists within Godot currently. Now I'm going to show you two ways to do this. One's very simple, the other is a little more complicated, just a little bit. And before we go into both those, I'm going to show you the new foldable container and how to use them. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new scene. I'll go to the user interface, that's a control. You know what, no, I'll delete that. I'll say don't save, I'll open this up. Other node, and we'll do a foldable container. Alright, so we can say this is our foldable container. It looks like it, right? We'll give it a name. Say, foldable one. And from here, we can go ahead and we could add, let's say we had a label as a child of this foldable container, and then we have all this text inside of it, right? Whatever we wanted to have. Cool. We'll go ahead and run this and take a look, and we can see, cool, it folds up perfectly fine. It looks like it seems to work perfect. Now, if all you want is just one thing that pops out like this, then that's fine. That is going to work great for you. But if you go ahead and you want to have anything else, let's say another foldable container, and then that container maybe has another label, and we'll specify this text to be my foldable text. I am way off on that. My fingers were off by one. My foldable text. We'll name this foldable container foldable 2. And you see when we run that, they each control their own thing, but that's not great. Alright, because it's kind of overlapping with itself. So the easiest way for us to go ahead and clear that up, if we go inside our initial foldable container, is if we go ahead and we use a VBox. Right, so some of you may already know where this is going, so if I go ahead like this, bring this in, we just do it like this, we can get a nice system that's working for us. Now, there is a reason why you might want to do it this way, just as there may be a reason for you to use the VBox as the, not saving it, as the scene root. Just realign those. Do something more like that. And if we were to take a look at this, functionally, they're going to look the same, just with a little spacer in between. So that's a small visual difference, just by making the VBox the root rather than the foldable container. And in addition to that, if the foldable container is the root, which is the slightly more complicated version that we're going to go over here, you can see no matter how many things we open here, my top piece here that says more info, since that is the root of this setup, is you can see no matter how much we scroll, we're always going to see that top bar to collapse everything. And that might be something that you want. So deciding how you set that up is going to be up to you. These foldable containers are so nice because instead of having just a big wall of text, for example, explaining to the user what is MSAA, what kind of performance impact you can look at, and then what is FXAA and the performance impact. So if you had a graphical setting, you could use something like this to show us more of a compact version rather than a giant wall of text. It's just going to look a lot nicer. All right, so the simple system, we're just going to go with this. So for the simple system here, we're going to go with this version here where we can open it all up. But as you can see, the way this one is set up, the whole thing scrolls so we don't keep that bar there at the top. And for you, that might be fine. You might be completely okay with that. And for others, maybe you're not. Maybe you really want to keep that bar at the top. But this is going to be the simplest approach to achieve this. All right, and to do that, we're going to be right on over here into this system. All we're going to have is a foldable container. I'm sorry, wrong one. We're going to have the scroll container as the root of our scene. Then I've got my foldable container, and then a VBox inside of that has its additional systems. So if I go to my foldable container and I go to the inspector, I do fold it and I turn that off. We can see inside of that, I have another foldable container inside of the VBox for my MSAA. And again, I can open that up, right? We can see it, and that has its own VBox at the end of the day, right? Because that's going to have its text for telling you what multi-sampling is, as well as another foldable container inside of that for the performance impact, right? And I'm just continuing this system all the way down. The point is, this system will use a scroll container for the root, and then I have my foldable container set up as children of that. Now, I'm going to go to where I want this tooltip to appear first. And it's going to be my HBox container here. And this just has a label and a slider, so you can kind of simulate having some kind of setting here that we want this to pop up on. All right, now this script, what we're going to have is we're going to have a tooltip scene for the pack scene, right? So we can just pick whatever we want on there. That way we can take this script and we could just drop it into any of our pieces inside of our settings, so we can just have the tooltip work. I'm checking for hovering. Tooltip, in case of this basic version, it's going to be a scroll container. And I have an export for my appear timer, which I'm using 0.6, which is roughly about how long it takes for the default tooltip to pop up. So I'm just kind of matching that. All right, I'm connecting the mouse entered and mouse exited signal. I'm doing it in the ready just so that it can be, of course, more dynamic, like I was saying, or I can just drop the script on another piece. And here's our simple things. Down here, you see this just the standard way to do a custom tooltip. But like I showed you, it disappears as soon as you move your mouse because it's not for interactables. So on mouse exit, we're simply turning hovering to false. And for the meat of what we're doing, on mouse entered, hovering goes to true. We're going to await the appear timer, which is our 0.6 seconds, so we can mimic an actual tooltip. And then we're simply going to check if we have a tooltip and we're hovering. If we don't have an existing tooltip and we're hovering, then tooltip is going to be our tooltip scene instantiated. And then I'm going to position it. So tooltip.globalPosition.get global mouse position. And then we simply get parent and add child. And in my case, I'm using get parent because I'm just adding it directly into my UI, which is my canvas layer. Now, if you want to put this somewhere else, like the root of the entire project or child of the root of your current scene, whatever it is you want to do, you can, but we're setting this up. So basically what this is going to do, this is going to take tooltip scene, instance it, assign that to our variable tooltip. We're going to set its position to be where the mouse is. And then we're going to add it into the scene. Right, so with that on its own, our tooltip would now appear in the scene for us, but we need to add a script to our system here, which is going to be very simple, as you can see. So on my scroll container itself, I just have a variable called track timer, and this is 1.0. So every 1 second, if you want to change this, make it shorter or longer, that's up to you. But every 1 second, I'm going to be using this to check if we're still using the tooltip. Because if we remove our mouse from it, then we're going to get rid of it, because we still want to treat it like a tooltip, but we still want to be able to interact with it. So my ready function, I'm just grabbing focus, just because I had this weird issue where sometimes I'd have to click into it and then click my foldable. So just to avoid that possibly being an issue, I just used grab click focus. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to. Maybe you won't have the issue, maybe it's a me thing. Then I have a function here for a track mouse, which if we go ahead and just jump to it, this function is going to wait for our track timer, so 1 second. We're going to check if not is mouse and menu. So if our mouse is not overlaid inside of our scroll container, then we're just going to call deferred queue free. So basically we're just going to delete it if our mouse isn't using our foldable container, right? The custom tooltip that we're working with. And if our mouse is still in there and we're using it, then we'll just call track mouse again. We'll wait 1 second, and again, we'll just continue this loop. Are we still using it? Yes. Okay. Track mouse. So we wait 1 second, check again, still using it, track, wait, check again, all the way until we're not using it, and then we free it. All right. And this is mouse and menu. You see that there at the top. All we're doing to show you how to use this is we're using if get global rect. So we're getting if I open this up, so we're going to get this square area, or this rect area. So you see this with the yellow, or not yellow, but orange outline. We're going to get that area, and we're basically going to say, is our mouse in here? Right. So if it has point, and the point that we're going to check is wherever our mouse is, get global mouse position. And it's simple. If our mouse is within the area, we return true. Otherwise, we return false. Right, so back to our HBox, we can just go into our scene, and we can just load up. In my case, that is tooltip demo 2, scroll container. And if we run that, we'll see it pops up, and we saw it disappear there because I'm no longer hovering over it. As soon as I moved my mouse, I went out of bounds of that. But I can come in and I can interact with it. It's all perfectly fine. Now, since this extends all the way out, if I were to hit this and close it, as you can see, that does shrink down with just the way that it works. If I were to click it from over here, my mouse is outside of it, and it will end up disappearing on us. Right. So this is there we go. It's kind of popping up on its own there as we go. But this is the basic tip, and this is with the entire thing scrolling without keeping that toolbar at the top, or without keeping the main more info, I should say, container at the top. Now, if you wanted to keep that at the top, we do get into a little more complicated, because we do have to manage some of the sizing of that ourselves, whether that's just because of maybe some glitchiness with it being brand new node type, or if that's just how it's going to work. But if I go to my tooltip demo, I'm going to stop this game. But you can see, we take a look here. I've got a foldable container. Inside of that is my scroll container. And then inside of that is my VBox and all my foldables. So I'm basically swapping around. If we take a look at it, I had a scroll container, and then the foldable was the child. And then everything else below that. In this other version, we're flipping that around. So the foldable is the root of the node, and the scroll container is the child, and then everything below that. Now, in this case, we do have signals working for us. So all of my foldable containers, all right, so if I were to expand this out, you'll see it. Every single one of my foldable containers are going to be connected to the same function. And what I'm going to connect these with is I'm going to be connecting the folding changed signal. And all of these are going to connect to the same function. So let's go ahead and take a look at the script for this slightly more complex one. All right, we're still using track timer. I'm setting a max height and a max width for how big I want the overall container to be for the size of my tooltip. Right, so in my ready function, I'm going to go ahead and just set my size to the minimum size so we can get that small box right out the gate. I'm going to set the VBox custom minimum size. It's going to be equal to the size of my foldable container. And then just like before, grab click focus, and we're going to use that same track mouse. All right. Now, on folding change with the argument is folded. This is the difference. Or I'm sorry, this is the main difference here, and this is what all of our signals, all these folding signals are going to connect to from all of our foldable containers. All right, so I'm just going to get my VBox and get the scroll container. So I'm going to do vbox.qsort. This should happen automatically, but it wasn't in my experience, so I'm going to call this manually. And I have two await process frames here because I want to wait 2 frames, and if I put this into a function or I ran this into a for loop to wait 2 process frames, it wouldn't work. So I just have it taken up 2 lines here for waiting for process frames. Now, here's where we get to our sizing. So we have scroll.custom minimum size y. And y and x is effectively going to be the same here. But y is going to be the min of VBox get combined minimum size. So that's going to take into account all of its contents, .y. And the second argument is max height. And we're going to do the same thing with the x. Min VBox combined minimum .x, pass in the max width. And that's going to allow our tooltip to grow and shrink manually for us. If you didn't put this in, I'll actually show you what is going to happen here. So let me just jump back over to this script, change this to a foldable container now. And in the inspector, I'll just update this, quick load this one. All right, so I'll show you what happens here. So you see it's already that large right out of the gate because it's not being resized. And it's just going to be huge like that no matter what we do. All right, so we need to do this in order to resize that to come back, shrink back down when we need it to. Otherwise, it'll grow and then it'll just stay up there. Right. So with these 2 lines of setting that custom minimum, that is not the one we want to run. We want to run this one. You can see it's going to grow and shrink at the appropriate size. So it is important to have those 2 lines in there if you want this to be able to grow and shrink. Otherwise, it's just going to grow and stay at that maximum size. All right. Is mouse in menu? We saw this before. It's exactly the same thing. Global rect has point, mouse position, return true or return false. Track mouse is exactly the same. Get tree, create timer, track timer, so wait 1 second. Is mouse overlaid in our container, right? So basically if we're using it still, then we'll just loop through by calling itself recursively. Otherwise, if we're no longer using it, call deferred and free itself. So we can see track mouse is mouse and menu. This is all exactly the same. The only difference is this signal here. Every time we click on our foldable containers, we're just resizing the scroll container for us based off of the size of the contents from our VBox. So that is the only difference being set in here. And of course, we have 2 additional variables that we can use. But with that one difference, we're able to keep that title of more info there at the top, no matter how much we scroll. So if you have a very long tooltip and you don't want to go all the way back up top, you can always just click on it to shrink it back up, or of course, just take your mouse off of it and it'll remove itself like a tooltip. All right. So that's it. I feel like I've ranted on long enough, but hopefully you understand how the foldable containers work, as well as a simple way to get a basic foldable tooltip and a slightly more complicated tooltip. All right, that'll do it. Take care. Have yourselves a good one, and I'll see you guys next week.